Hi guys, Susan here. Okay, let's do another episode of Summer School. Let's talk about the basic tools you need for fashion design that you need to get right now and how to use them. And that's what's next. Alright guys, so it's literally the 4th of July today that I'm filming. That's why I'm dressed like this. But I wanted to let you know also that I already have videos out about the fashion design tools that you're going to need. I have the top 10 in the description box below so you can see that, because that's more of an extensive view of all the equipment that you're going to need. But I wanted to go over the essential ones, the primary ones that you're going to need to get for sure if you're going to go to a university and study fashion design or not. And I wanted you to get a head start on how to use them and what they are already, so that you can have a heads up and have these tools already in your toolbox, so to speak. So let's go ahead and do that. But before I do that, I want to thank you guys for watching my summer school. Let me know how I'm doing with summer school, that you're enjoying this vlog series that I'm doing all summer long, preparing you for fashion design. And give me comments below about it specifically, okay? All right guys, here are the tools that I really think are essential. These are the basic tools that I feel are the most important to get right now if you're going to go to a university or not to study fashion design. And I want to go over what they are and a brief description on how to use them. Okay, so let's start with the scissors now. So these are the scissors that you're going to need for fashion design. Let's start off with the paper scissor. This is a Fisker. It is a very good paper scissor, but I have even used, and it just cuts paper. You never want it to cut fabric, guys. Never ever use it on fabric because it will dull it. And this is just to cut your patterns out and do curves. I've even used dollar store scissors, so that is not as important when you're just dealing with paper. Okay, fabric scissors. Gingham is favorite, and this dressmaking scissor is pretty straight up and down, as you can see, so that you can just go and smoothly go over the table like this and cut sharply like that. This is not a very large one. This might be a 7 or 8 inch. You don't need much more than that, guys. You don't need much more than that, because I think that once it gets bigger, it gets a little bit harder. As you become more advanced, you can then get a larger one to cut multiple layers, as well as a faster situation when you're starting to produce. But as you're learning, you just need a very sharp, very, very good Gingham scissor, or any kind. Weiss was good. There are other brands out there. And you want to identify your scissors in school. Put up something, tie something around it. I used to put actual nail polish on mine as well, put in a little dot or my initials. But you just want to identify it that way, and you also want to keep them safe, keep them in their jackets, keep them identified. All right, let's move on. Carbon paper or tracing paper. This is so old that it's falling apart, but you need that for when you're doing some of your patterns in fashion design. You need it to also go through the cloth as well as through paper. And this is a tracing paper that I use. I will link all of these in the description box with my Amazon links so that you can purchase any of these items for yourself. And you most likely are going to use red. Red and yellow will probably be the only colors you're going to need. Yellow if you want something a little bit lighter. Red if it just basically. And going to the next step, you're going to need tracing wheels. So there are 2 tracing wheels that are needed for fashion design. The traditional home sewing tracing wheel with the soft or shorter prongs like this. That's for tracing with fabric. If you want to I put the tracing paper, either you can put it inside like this or outside like this, so both sides. If you want to trace a line from one side of your garment to the other side, you just need to be able to do it like this with the small prong tracing wheel. So now I have traced that line onto the other side. But if you're tracing a shape Going to need this professional one that's used for fashion design. It has long prongs, and it allows, if you're going to be transferring from a paper to a paper, to make a indication that will go through and give you indications all the way through. If you're trying to transfer, let's say, your design that you draped in muslin and now you want to put it on paper, the long prong tracing wheel is the best bet for that. All you have to do is go on the line itself all throughout those layers like that. Once you do that, you now have those markings on your paper, so then you can just add your seam allowance, finish your designs, whatever you need to do, and that's how you transfer from the muslin to the paper with the professional dressmaking or fashion design long prong tracing wheel. You're going to just need number 2 pencils. I use my kneaded eraser when I'm working either on fabric or on drawing, but just number 2 pencils. We've got the 2 types of pins. These are the silk pins, and the reason why I like the silk pins, and I like them long, is because they go through the fabric really well when you're draping. They're very easy to go through the fabric. These longer pins are good for sewing with the balls on the end of them, but they're not good for draping, because when you're doing draping and you're trying to transfer, or you're trying to do this shape onto another part of a garment like that, you want to then be able to put the pins all the way through and have them united all the way along your design like this, and you don't want these large balls on them when you're doing that. So this is good for sewing. This long silk pins are good for draping. You're going to need push pins if you're working with a corkboard. Stay in place, or you're working on it, you're doing a slash and spread, or whatever you're doing, this will help you to keep stationary your design. If you do not want to get the push pins and you're not going to be working on a corkboard, you can then use weights. These are small little weights that will help to keep your patterns to stay in place while you're doing your design, or even your fabric in place when you're doing the cutting process. Okay, small weights is all you need right now. Very important is your tape measure. I stress this all the time, that you need a tape measure that's flexible, and actually the cheaper ones, they have this end here that is not stationed on. It does not stay on. It's not bolted down, so to speak, that you can just flip off. And I flipped it off on here on the edge of my tape measure right here, so I can get as small as a 1/16 of an inch done. So you want this cheaper tape measure, not the fancy dancy ones, and I'll put those links below. Okay, the rulers you're going to need. These are the 3 most important rulers you're going to need for fashion design. The 18-inch long one by 2 inches. It is clear plastic, and I'm going to show you a trick, guys, that most people don't even tell you, or professors don't even tell you, that this has measurements as small as 1/16 of an inch on all the edges of this ruler. Okay, you can see 1/16 of an inch all the way along here, all the way along here, and here. Otherwise, you have 1/8 markings, just like this, all the way this way and this way. But they also don't tell you that one side of this ruler is actually a hair smaller than the other side. You have to look and use your eyes, and you should be able to see it. The reason for that is, if you're doing a 2-inch marking just like this, in order to get a special, let's say you want to do an 1/8 of an inch extension on that, if I use this side here, which is a little bit fatter, it is going to be, let me use a very sharp pencil, it is going to be too big. But if I use this side here, which is just a tiny bit smaller, when I put my pencil and draw the line, it is a perfect 1/8 of an inch width. So you have to kind of look at that one side is just a hair smaller so that you can draw and use that side in order to put your lines, because every single 1/16 of an inch makes a difference in pattern making and in the grading process. The next ruler is the hip curve. This is the hip curve. This shape is the best for doing hip lines, design lines, or any other kind of lines. Sometimes you'll see these metal rulers and they'll be also kind of joining this ruler with it, and it's all metal. Don't get it. It is not an accurate French curve, which is the next ruler, the French curve. The French curve is perfect for doing armholes, necklines, drop lines, design lines. It has two special holes just like this, and what makes it so special is that once you start learning how to do the armhole, you're going to know which curve is more necessary for the more curvage area would be your front, and when you're doing your back, sleeve, armhole, it's going to be less. And there are ways of understanding and learning that, and that's through the special holes and this curve. So the French curve, this one only, guys. Next, you're going to need your typical just black thread, white thread, and some needles. You can use a needle in a case like this where you have different sizes, because you're going to have to do some hand sewing as well as some basting. So just your basic thread. I like to use this thread because it is just strong both in hand sewing as well as sewing on a machine. If you're going to be, when you're using your hand sewing, you're going to need this little waxer. It's a case, and it's an actual roll of wax, so that when you're actually doing your hand sewing, you can then wax your thread by putting it in the groove so it will not knot as easily when you're doing your hand sewing. I don't use pin cushions. I like to use these magnetic ones, but if you're draping and you want one when you're doing your draping, you can get a small pin cushion like that. All right, if you're not going to be using a cork board, you're going to need a tape. You're going to need our tape. And remember, I talked about how important it was to use the magic matte finish tape. And the reason why is so that you can actually put it down on your paper like this, and you can draw on the tape. You can't do that with the shiny stuff. I recommend that you get an actual dispenser like this. And if you have a roll like this, all you have to do is push them in like that. Take it out. I'm going to take this one out like this, push that out, push this back in, and now you have it on your dispenser. It makes it easier. It makes it easier to work. And it also can be a weight if you need an extra weight for weighing down your project. All right, last few things. You're going to need draping tape. I used to use satin. Now I use this, it's called architectural tape. It's used for architectural drawings, and it's adhesive. Let me find the ends of this so you can see. It's adhesive. They come shiny or matte. The nice thing about this, put on your mannequin the shapes that you want with this tape like this, so you have a design line that you can see on your dress form. You're going to have to get a notcher, and this is a notcher. It is a special design tool. It is essential for pattern making. Please invest in one of these. It has a little hole there, and it has a shape, and it makes 4 notches. So, you know, your fashion design and dressmaking, you need something that actually you can clip on. And if I'm making a pattern and there's a notch on one side and I need to make the other part of the pattern match it, I'm going to fold it like that, and I'm going to go ahead and put a notch on both ends. And it makes this little groove like this, so that when you're doing when you're actually cutting, you can put it onto your fabric like this and cut your pattern like this. And when you want to transfer it, you just clip with those holes like that. And so now your pattern has the indications so that you can map out your designs. your best friend is going to be the seam ripper. Get a good one. This is one of my favorites. And I want to just give you a tip on how to take out a seam properly. Here is my seam. I have back stitch. You always want to go in the back and go through one of the actual stitches like that. And then you go every other one and take out a stitch like that. Once you have a few of them out, then you can go in the front if you want and rip out stitch by stitch like that. But never, guys, never stick your seam ripper like this and then tear all the way through, because you can accidentally cut your actual garment with that. Bad habit, do not do it. Go in the back, take out a stitch, and then go in the front, pull the stitch out, and separate it like this, and then take it like that. Okay, the very last tool, a small pair of scissors. In order to clip threads, I like to have a small pair of scissors to do that, or to clip little ends, whatever. All right, we did it, guys. Those are the essential tools that I think you need right now. We're done for today, but if you love these videos, please subscribe and share these videos with your friends, and I'll see you next week on Summer School. Thank you. Bye-bye.